anything, and can take any form or forms it chooses. The world is multiple and complex. So is the novel. There are no hard and fast rules for reading or writing fiction. A novel might go absolutely anywhere or do anything. This is the idea, this excitement, this freedom of the contemporary novel that underlies this book. This unbound freedom of fiction in combination with the huge number of novels published every year, too many each year for any one person to read in a lifetime, also means that in contemporary fiction there can be no real experts in the conventional sense. Who, anyway, could be an expert on flowing quicksilver that can go anywhere? But thinking about novels in this way, thinking about how they think, does offer ways of avoiding common pitfalls. For example, what a novel thinks is not the same as what an author thinks. Some book reviewers and journalists, perhaps inadvertently, suggest that we can only appreciate a novel in the context of a writer's life, and some writers play up to this. Often this means that we pay attention to the correlation between two stories, the story of the novel, or a bad summary of the novel, and the story of the writer's life. Or in the case of contemporary fiction, we can listen to the author, her or himself, tell you what a book is about. Both of these mean that we no longer pay attention to the actual novel itself, which is surely why we were interested in the first place. One very excusable reason for this phenomenon is that it is actually hard to make out what knowing about a novel actually means. Knowing the plot? Knowing what it means while knowing that it means very different things to very different people? Knowing that it made you cry or smile? In the face of this uncertainty, turning to the story of an author's life or opinions gives a sense of security that some real fact is being told, or some real knowing about is happening. This seems to me quite wrong-headed. Knowing that a book makes you weep, or that it was boring, seems to me to be a fine subjective sort of knowledge. Knowing how it seems to fit into some bigger picture, finding its place in a larger constellation, seems to me to be a better, if more provisional form of knowledge. And paying attention to its thinking, what a novel seems to be saying, seems to me to be the best form of knowing about contemporary fiction. But none of these is expertise as the word is usually understood. This freedom of the novel also makes the question of how we work out who we are very demanding. We is quite a complicated word, not least because it includes and excludes simultaneously. Who we are, the communities of which each of us feels a part, is central to understanding the contemporary novel. The question is, who is the we made intelligible by a novel's thinking? The novel used to be seen as a place where a national tradition revealed and reinforced a community, a we. However, modern novels have become increasingly global. They cross and mix traditions and cultures, travel, and are translated. The idea of a national tradition of, say, the English or American or Kenyan novel has been bypassed by globalization. Optimistically, the post-national novel might suggest that readers could learn about each other's differences, hopes, and fears, and that our we could be infinitely enlarged. We might all become intelligible to each other. Pessimistically, some novels are ignored, misunderstood, or simply marketed as exotic novelties, and in the face of the whole world, our communities may become more defensive and less outgoing. Either way, the novel, like the human species, is now global, and the form is still coming to terms with this deep and recent change. A further symptom of this unboundedness and of the globalization of the novel is that there is no real agreement about when the contemporary is. We know the contemporary ends in the present, but when does it start? Traditionally, literary periods take their dates from watershed historical moments. In Western Europe, for example, the period of the contemporary might begin in 1945. Yet even within Europe there are differences. In Spain, the contemporary might begin with the death of Franco in 1975. In Germany, with the end of the Cold War in 1989, or reunification in 1990. Outside Europe, things are very different again. Contemporary might mean the end of the USSR in 1991 in Russia, or independence from Britain in 1947.